Hello, my name is Alison Werner, and I am the Chief Editor of Orthodontic Products. I hope you are all well. We are back again with advice on how to help you manage your orthodontic practice through this crisis caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. Today, we are going to take a look at how orthodontists can manage their financial future in these uncertain times. Joining me are financial advisors Dr. Mart McClellan and Tim Streid. Dr. McClellan is both a registered investment advisor and a practicing orthodontist, giving him a unique insight into the financial realities of orthodontists. Meanwhile, Tim previously practiced as a certified public accountant. The two partnered and are presidents of Macro Wealth Management, a financial management firm specializing in serving the dental and medical profession. The two recently released their book, Your Retirement Smile, the treatment plan for pay cut prevention in your golden years, their guide for dental professionals planning for their retirement. Today they are here to talk to me about how orthodontists like you can manage the financial world amid COVID-19. Mart and Tim, thank you for joining me.
Very welcome. It's our pleasure.
Great. Well, let's get started. What's your perspective on the economy today and the state of emergency orthodontists find themselves in due to COVID-19?
Yeah, well, we're certainly in unprecedented times for sure. But the good news about the economy is that we actually came into this crisis with a very good economy. If it would have been an economy that was not as stable as it was prior to, then there'd be much more issues today than what we're going to experience, I think, when we come out. That's why I really feel that, or we really feel, is that when we get through this crisis, there'll be sort of a V-shaped curve where obviously we've gone down very quickly, fastest bear market economy ever, most unemployment we've ever seen ever. But I do feel that when this all sort of works its way through, what we'll find is it's going to rebound very fast because the underlying current was good prior to the crisis. Certainly from the orthodontist standpoint, it's also unprecedented. As a practicing orthodontist, I've been off for a number of weeks like everybody else, and that's really the difference, right? I mean, a lot of times when people go through the crisis, we have to lay off people because businesses aren't doing as well. But now we had to lay ourselves off. I mean, it's something that really we've never experienced before. But the good news about the crisis, and I really believe this, is that through our careers, we've been around for many years. There's been many crises. The '87 stock market crash. There was the .com crash. There was the 9/11 event. The 2008 crash. They've all, been very serious in and of themselves, but in a different way. And each and every one of those crises, we came out very robustly. If you look at the stock market issues behind those crises, there's a pretty significant upswing right after those crises, and I believe that will certainly occur when we get out of this too. And then, but from the orthodontist standpoint, I think some of the issues will be, the big unknown, which when we get back is, how are we going to manage our practices? How are we going to manage the workload? How are we going to deal with sort of these maybe different universal precautions? We may have to sort of change our physical plant in our office, where we maybe have to spread the chairs out a little bit more, be more aware of the aerosol spray. So these are some of the things that, during this emergency, as orthodontists, I think we need to prepare ourselves prior to going back to sort of saying that these may be impacting our ability to do what we were doing before this event.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So what's your advice on how orthodontists should be managing their finances during this crisis and after?
Yeah, the biggest thing during this crisis is how orthodontists are managing their cash flow. Those orthodontists who came into this issue with a pretty solid balance sheet and both professionally as well as personally are going to be able to weather this storm much easier than those who did not. And certainly those who did not and have some cash flow issues are going to have to sort of deal with some of these new loans that are out there, the PPPL loan and the EIDL loans and all those issues. And we should take advantage of those as much as we can. But it really comes down to managing the cash flow. And I think what will happen is when people go through this for this first time, especially the younger orthodontists, they're going to probably change their tune in the future about how they manage their cash flow. So if this were to occur in the future or another type of crisis, we know another crisis will occur in some capacity, they'll be able to better handle it when that time comes.
Mhm. Can we follow up a little bit on that? What what should the younger orthodontists be doing versus the more established? Is there something you recommend, or something unique about their situation?
Well, it really depends on the young orthodontist situation in that, are they an associate? Are they starting their own practice? They've got some different financial situations. Obviously, being an associate with future opportunity to be partner is going to be a little bit easier to manage than if they were starting their own practice and, maybe have some debt obligations to the bank for a build out or buying the practice or so forth and so on. And so, the management of their debt is going to be of critical importance for those young orthodontists, and whether it's getting delays on their student loan payments or their mortgage payments or even their business loan payments, that's going to be the tough thing for them.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
and
just
yeah,
to
go ahead.
reiterate what Mart said, I think the management of cash flow is key to this whole thing, as it is really through every stage of life. Managing cash flow is important, and right now for those orthodontists out there today, I think if you can get deferments, on your loans, take them. Keeping cash in your pocket is important. You can always come back and catch it up if that's what, if need be down the road. But we don't know how this will end, when it'll end. But having the cash in your pocket, today is very important, and really it's important at every stage of one's life.
Okay. You talked about the problems, so let's talk about what are the root causes for the problems that orthodontists are experiencing today.
Yeah, the root causes really come from two venues, and the first being, and the big one, is from what we call the range makers. We talked about it quite a bit in our book about the root causes are created by these institutions, one being the government, two being corporations, and three being financial institutions. Those entities are very important in our everyday lives, but we have to understand that they have an objective that that it's their job in the capitalistic society is to generate income and gather funds. And so in reality, all those entities, they tell us to do the exact opposite as they do as the consumer. And so they're in the world of accelerating their income, whereas they tell us to accumulate our wealth. And so they are doing two opposite things. And so what they're doing is they're more or less using our money to make more money for themselves. And when they do that, obviously they're accelerating, they're taking less risk. And so, when we get caught into that accumulation world, we have very difficult times accelerating our money because we have what we call the financial junk drawer. That's the second root cause, because these institutions, they tell us to buy all these financial products, and whether it's auto insurance, homeowners, disability insurance, checking accounts, savings accounts, 401ks, IRAs, Roths, annuities, real estate, your practice, bonds, all kinds of stuff, right? Well, all those entities tell us to buy these things and invest in these things, but what it does, it creates a financial junk drawer. We all have a kitchen junk drawer, and we also have financial junk drawer, maybe unbeknownst to most of the listeners here. And what that does is when you have a junk drawer, obviously you sort of know what's in there, but it's not organized, it's not correlated, it's not integrated in any way. So it creates a lot of mess and a lot of what we call inefficiency. And so the rules makers or the rainmakers are very good at understanding the concept of efficiency, because when you understand efficiency, you get multiple uses out of the dollar over the course of a lifetime. It's called velocitizing your money. But when we have a junk drawer, we have really no efficiency in there. So the objective is sort of turn that kitchen junk drawer into a very well organized model. So really to understand the solutions, you have to understand the problems. And so we really need to sort of wrap our head around why we're in this situation, why do sometimes people have problems with cash flow, and how we're going to resolve it.
Okay. So what are the solutions to these problems then?
Yeah, so the solutions really there's really three components of it, and all three components are equally important. The first piece of the solution is what we call our model and or simulator. The model is a beautiful like game board of finance. It's like playing the game of Monopoly, right? You know, can you imagine playing the game of Monopoly without a game board? It would be totally chaos. It'd be a total disaster. Yet most Americans, and orthodontists included, are trying to play the game of finance without a game board. And so we utilize a game board to sort of measure and determine where is the best place to position all of our different financial products in their proper place. And so the model itself is broken down into 5 components. The top component being the protection component. That's more or less where our insurance products reside in our estate planning documents. And that's more or less the moat around the castle. There's no wealth belt in that component, but it really enables people to develop financial lives or models where they can have plans that work under all circumstances. And so when that is set up properly, then that gives us the peace of mind to sort of, okay, start investing our money. And that's when we move down to that we call our second component, which is the savings component. The savings component is where our safe money resides. Things such as checking accounts, savings accounts, CDs, money markets, and even our retirement plans reside in the savings component, because the main thing about the retirement plans is that obviously when we put money into these plans, we want to make sure that the money is going to be there in retirement. In 2008, when the underlying economy was not good like it is today, there was a lot of fears and trepidations that they're going to run out of money. Because a lot of their monies were embedded in these retirement plans. And so we want to make sure that the allocations in retirement plans are allocated a little bit more towards the safer side as opposed to the more risky side. And then once we sort of allocate those dollars accordingly, then say, all right, now we can move down to that third component of the 5, which is the growth component. And the growth component is where our risk money resides. The word safety is no longer part of the equation. And it's the word safety is replaced by the word potential. There's the potential for interest to be gained in the bond environment. There's potential for dividends and interest in the stock market. There's potential for rents and stuff in real estate. The ownership of your business is a huge, huge piece of the growth component. And the beautiful thing about this model is that it's like a perfect financial treatment plan. When we go to our orthodontic practice and the patient comes in and they do their exam and get the records and you put the braces on, make the adjustments, put the brackets on and do all so forth and so on, you get a beautiful result, beautiful smile, well-functioning bite, right? Well, the same thing occurs in personal finance. We want to make sure that when somebody is following the model accordingly, that they'll have a perfect, beautiful financial model on the back end. And so the only way to do that is actually to sort of make sure that your practice, which is the most powerful drawer in the entire model, is providing the income to put money into your financial life. Because if you're not building wealth within your, or creating profits within your dental orthodontic practice, obviously there's no money to put into the model itself, which really leads to the last 2 components of our model, which is the cash flow, which we've discussed, Tim and I discussed briefly before. Management of cash flows of essential for your success, and then the management of your debt. And really those 2 components in this crisis are critical. We talked a little bit about, how we manage your debt. We want to make sure that debt is structured in a proper manner so that we don't want you to become poor at the expense of paying off your debt. There are proper ways to pay off the debt, and there are improper ways to pay off the debt. And certainly during this type of crisis, we really need to make sure that those debt instruments are certainly structured in such a way that we can make it through in the safest manner possible.
Okay.
And then secondly too, I guess the unique thing about that, the model is such as that it's not a static model, right? So it's not one point in time. It is actually a simulator. It's like a flight simulator. My son's a pilot, and most people know what a flight simulator is for pilots. They stress test many different environments. When you fly a plane, they'll put wind shear on there. They'll have an engine fall off. They'll blow out a tire. All these different instances occur to the pilot prior to him going in the plane to fly real people, right? And so the simulator is the exact same thing as sort of a flight simulator. We can stress test any type of different financial decision, whether it's how do you pay your mortgage, how to invest in your retirement plan, should you make an outside investment, how should you pay for insurance, all these different variables that occur, we can test them prior to making a decision. Matter of fact, that's actually how I met Tim. People ask me all the time, well, why are you talking about financial information? Because you are a trained orthodontist, and that would be a true statement. And never in a million years would I think I'd be talking to my friends and colleagues about this topic. But when I first met Tim, I was referred to him by one of our dental school classmates, and he said that Tim helped change his life, and said maybe sit down with Tim. And at the time, this is 20 plus years ago, I was set with a financial decision that I really, being an orthodontist, didn't really know the answer to. And Tim says, hey, we've got this model, and I can actually measure those two different decisions. And I don't know you from Adam, but this model can really give you a peace of mind that decision to be the right answer or the wrong answer. And so we stress tested it with those two different things, and what we found was that what I was doing initially was the appropriate way to go. And that one decision changed my wife and my financial life really forever. And then after the .com crash in 2001, our model was working quite well. And so I went to Tim. I'm like, we need to get this information to the orthodontic world and the dental world. So that's when we started our company. But the only way for us to, sort of do that was to have this model. And the model is really a differentiator between sort of what we do, which is more of a holistic type of planning process, opposed to maybe a traditional financial planner.
Okay.
Just to add to what you're saying there, Mart, when you speak of a solution, there are three components to that solution. The model certainly is a big one, probably the biggest. But then along with the model or our game board, in order to be effective, there has to be a set of rules that go along with it as well. So there's a rule book, and money's no different than anything else out there. It operates by a set of rules, and to be successful and build wealth successfully, there needs to be rules that you abide by. And so I think the rule book is crucial there as well. And then really the third component to building an effective plan long term is having a macro manager as part of your team. I think to be successful, you will have a number of individual advisors that are part of your team over time, whether that's your property and casualty agent, perhaps a real estate person, your banker. Today, those that have a great banker on their team are doing much better than those that don't have a banking relationship. An attorney, an accountant, certainly a life insurance agent, stockbroker, whatever. But if you look at all of those individuals, they're very specialized in maybe one or two areas of our model. Like an attorney, will and trust document preparation would be their skills. An accountant may be very skilled in tax preparation. The real estate person may be very skilled in real estate transactions. The property and casualty person is looking at your auto, your home, your liability. But that's all they look at. And really every financial decision that we make will have lasting and far-reaching impacts on other areas of the model. So in order to be effective, you really need to look at the whole picture. And that's where Mart and I come into play as the macro managers, to bring all of those decisions together to make sure that the decisions you're making individually and feel as if you're taking 2 steps forward actually aren't putting you 3 steps backwards, okay? And so that's our role as a macro manager. And I think it's important that you have someone helping you look at the whole picture rather than just individual pieces of the pie.
Okay. How are you handling your clients' investments during this crisis?
Yeah, so the interesting about investments is that it's never really necessarily about the investment in and of itself. It's about the philosophy and the structure behind it. So many times people ask us, how do we look at our investments? And we look at them in a very academic way in terms of we want, very, how would I say, economically based structure behind our decision making. So we have like Nobel Prize winning individuals that are, or research that we use to set up our structured portfolios. And how we do, and by doing so, we look across the spectrum of all the stocks across the entire universe of stocks, fully diversified, all asset classes, international, American, emerging markets, so forth and so on, as well as the entire bond market. And we structure them in a way based on the person's risk tolerance or loss tolerance, which we're going to call it. And when people have that type of peace of mind of having that structure and that philosophy, knowing that this is how the markets work, markets go up, markets go down, but when you have that in your hip pocket, you have a very good understanding that when the crisis comes, or when the market dips, when the things go down, you're still going to be okay. It's the main thing is understanding that when people get emotional during these times, they make poor decisions. When 2008 rolled around, we didn't have one client call us on the phone asking us about their portfolios. And it's not that our portfolios didn't go down, because they did go down, but not necessarily as much as all the other things, because they were structured in an academic way. And so when people know that, they'll understand that they'll be able to weather this storm. Even this recent market, the buyer market crashed, 30%, but last week was a great week in the market. So, if you were to sort of drop out of the market when that market crashed, and you would have obviously missed out on some wonderful returns this last week. So the key about investing is staying in your seat, not being emotional, and understanding that markets deliver a rate of return, and it's our job. It is really the only free lunch in investing, is to garner those rates of return by being in the market in a well-diversified way. Any comments on that, Tim?
Yeah, so I think when we look at investing, it's not the answer to, or the sole answer to a person's overall wealth. It's just part of the answer, and I think to be in the market, first and foremost, you have to have strong liquidity in place first. If you don't have that before you go into the market, then you can't be disciplined, you can't be patient, and you'll become very emotional as the market goes up and goes down. And for our clients who have, kind of followed the rules of the model, having strong liquidity equal to at least 50% of 1 year's gross household income is the first step before you even do any investing in the market. So when you have that safety net in place, the market reacts as it has over the last 3-4 weeks. Yeah, you don't like it, but it's not like you have to cash in your money because you have no cash on the sidelines to get you through this period of time that we're experiencing. So when you have cash and strong liquidity in place, you can roll through these markets that we're experiencing today.
Okay. What should people be looking for in an advisor during a crisis like this?
Yeah, so in these types of crises, whether in crisis, it is really essential to have somebody who can so you can talk to. So many times the people there are a lot of orthodontists that, they're kind of do-it-yourselfers, and they try to figure it out themselves. And unfortunately, we know with almost full certainty that those who try to do it themselves will never be quite as efficient with their financial decision making than if they didn't have some type of trusted advisor along their side. And it's like anything in life. If you're a sports figure, an actor, artist, whatever, everybody has mentors to make them better. And most orthodontists will sort of engage a practice management consultant, which we think is an appropriate thing to do to make their practices better. And the same thing should go with your financial advisor. Everybody should have somebody who they really feel that they can say, hey, this is a tough time. They can pick up the phone, they can email, they can text, and sort of and talk it through, because these last 3-4 weeks, Tim can attest to, have been very busy weeks for us. because there's been a lot of questions, and there's been a lot of learning on our part too with all this new governmental legislation and the CARES Act. But when you're looking at finding an financial advisor, it's one of the reasons why I entered this industry, because the trust factor. I mean, so many times there's a lot of people in the world of finance who will take advantage of people, unfortunately, and it happens in all industries. But I really felt that if people would, can embrace sort of what I experienced over the last 20 years and can utilize something that we know works, I think there's high value there. And then, we as Tim and I, as fiduciaries of our business, we feel it's really important to have a fiduciary responsibility to your clients. Not all advisors are fiduciaries. It's actually a very small percentage. So, by having fiduciary and then having an orthodontist on the team of advisors, it really, I think, gives us sort of a unique perspective of, helping our friends and colleagues sort of manage this turmoil, so to say.
Okay. I think to be effective as an advisor, you need to be a problem solver. You need to be available, and you need to be there in times like this for your clients, more so than when things are going well. Because when things are going well, just about anybody can jump in and fill the role, if you will. But it's times like we're experiencing today that it's important that you have a financial advisor on your team that is there, walking shoulder to shoulder with you through the issues and helping you solve the problems, keeping you on path, keeping you calm, and just helping you navigate the crisis.
Okay. Well, I think this will give our viewers a lot to think about and some actionable advice to help them navigate the road ahead. So, Mart and Tim, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure. Really enjoyed it. Thank you so much, Alison.
Thanks. And with that, I'd like to also thank our viewers for joining us. I remind you to visit orthodonticproductsonline.com for the latest industry news. And until next time, take care and stay safe.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Cheers.